There is comfort in repetitive movement. A yogi would say, I am practicing yoga. Perfection is never the goal. The process and what we learn about ourselves along the way is what matters. Stitching is like that. We carefully select our fabric, choose just the right floss, and we gather our tools, the scissors and needles. Then we take a seat in our favorite chair and begin to stitch. The needle goes into the fabric and comes back out. It goes in and comes back out. Stitch by stitch, we make beauty and find comfort as we stitch. There, you want to say hi to the peeps? Look, there's Archie. Say hi, everybody. Hi, I'm Jackie. This is Archie. Welcome to my FlossTube called Comfort Stitching. And today is Saturday, February 22nd, 2025. And this is episode 13. How are we at nearly the end of February already? I can't even believe it. Somebody's tired. I just got him off the bed to come and say hi to you guys. He's probably going to want to go back. Nice to see you all. I am about a week later than usual getting to this video today for a couple of reasons. Mainly, last weekend I went on a really cool field trip, which I will tell you about later. And then secondly, for those of you in the United States, you know that the bulk of the United States spent almost all last week in a deep freeze and having winter storms. And it just wasn't a fun weather week. So I think everybody was doing the best they could just to stay warm, quite honestly. Here in Missouri, where I am, there were a couple of days that if the temperature during the day got above 0, and of course we're in Fahrenheit here for those of you who are not in the United States, but yeah, there were a couple of days when the temperature struggled to get above 0. And at night, I think the lowest we went was maybe 11 degrees below 0. We set new records here. And with wind chills in the minus like 22 or something like that. Needless to say, it was cold and everybody is really glad to see the sun. And today, like I said, Saturday, February 22nd, we're actually gonna be in the high 30s today. So this feels like swimsuit weather in comparison. Gosh, I hope nobody gets out their swimsuit today. I'm not sure anybody would want to see that. But anyway, welcome back. It's nice to see everybody. And thank you, as always, for all of the wonderful comments that I received after my last video. Especially that last one where I gave the recap of Sampler Symposium that I went to, that retreat that I went to in Mesa, Arizona in January. I got a lot of great comments, and I'm so glad that for those of you who have never been to such a thing, I'm glad you felt like you actually were there. And for those of you who have been before but weren't able to be at that one, I'm glad that I could take you back. Archie having a little scratch there. He might actually just stay out here for a while, so we'll see how that goes. So, you know, I've got the usual stitchy, cross-stitchy things, and gosh, I should back up. If you've never been to or never watched a episode of a FlossTube video before, or ever watched FlossTube before, you might be wondering, what the heck is that? Well, it's a series of videos that a lot of people sit down in front of a camera and talk all about their love of this hobby of cross stitch and what they like to stitch, why they like to stitch. Here, hopefully I talk about why I like to stitch. And also we share progress on our works in progress, if we've got new things or things that are inspiring us. So if you like to cross stitch or you like to do needle arts of any type, some people even share different hobbies on their FlossTube videos. But if you like to do any of that kind of stuff, I hope you'll stick around, and I hope you like what you see. And if you do, maybe hit the like and subscribe button. And so we'll go from there. And today I have like what is the usual, I guess usual content of a FlossTube, which is works in progress, or commonly known as WIPS. I have a finish, and I have a new start, and I have a surprise new start and a finish all in the same couple of days. That happened. Got some happy mail and a little bit of stash enhancement. Also have a piece of hair in front of my eye. And then for those of you who've been here before, you know I started a couple of episodes ago. Actually, at the first of the year, I started working on a Quaker sampler, and I'm delving into the little bit of the history of Quaker samplers. So I've got some information to share on that. And then we're going to end today with a little bit of meditation time, just some quiet time. So I hope you'll stick around, and we'll just kind of see where things lead to us. And I do read off, I think most of us who do these have notes beside us, because we have a lot to share and want to at least sort of keep on some semblance of a track. So I'm going to start with the finish that I have. And I'm very excited to show this one to you today. It's a Barbara Anna piece that I've been working on, and it's part of a stitch along that I'm kind of co-leading with Sarah from Sew Me Sarah. And we started this at the winter solstice last December 21st, I think, 2024. And we started with, we're working on a Barbara Anna pattern that has some ladies in fun dresses, and there are 4 of them to meet the 4 seasons, if you will. Let me see, let me pull out a copy of that. This is a well-used color copy now, but these are the ladies of the 4 seasons. And we started with the winter one because we were celebrating the winter solstice in December last year. If you're in the Southern Hemisphere and you started along with us, maybe you started the spring one. But Sarah and I did the winter one, and I have a finish. So here she is. And let me move her closer so you can see. This little lady is stitched on 40 count linen. It is the color sapphire. That beautiful blue is sapphire, and it's dyed by a company called Fiber on a Whim. I just love, love, love that dark blue. Now, I will tell you, I did not use many of the called for colors. I think the 2 pinks maybe are called for, and the hair, and possibly the skin. This is my color palette that I used. And the reason I ended up not using some of the called for colors is because I started and I did a bit of frogging, because the colors were just very pale on this dark colored background. So I had to kind of pump them up a little bit. And so I'm going to tell you, or kind of show you, my changes. So the skirt was supposed to be this light blue 598, and it just was really washed out on that dark blue. So I just pumped it up a notch to 597. And then instead of just plain old white, I used the very bright DMC white. I think it's B5200 if I'm not mistaken. And I think I might have even beefed up one of the pinks. But anyway, I'm very happy to have her done in plenty of time so that I'll have a little break before we start the next one. So how Sarah and I are running this stitch along is that we're starting each of these girls with the seasons. So this one was started with the winter solstice. The next girl, the spring one, We will start with the spring equinox, and then once we get to the summer solstice and the autumnal equinox, we'll start each of those 4 girls. So our stitch along will really run throughout the rest of the year. And hopefully if you're stitching along with us, or if you're just seeing this for the first time, you're welcome to join us. But hopefully we have set this up in such a way that you can work these. And as you can see, it's not big. Although, like I said, this is 40 count, but they're not a lot of stitches, each one of them. I think each one is 64 wide by 99 tall, so that's not huge. Some people are choosing to put all 4 of the girls on one piece of fabric. I've obviously chosen to put mine on separate pieces of fabric so I can change the background color. But they don't take a whole lot of your time, and hopefully it will give you enough time to work this into your stitchy schedule and still feel like you're not overburdened by too many things to do. So we are using a hashtag. We're encouraging people to share their progress and finishes with us on Instagram. We're using a hashtag BA4 seasons SAL, and I'll run that on the screen here too. We'd love for you to tag us on social media, on Instagram if you're there, so we can see what you're doing and what your finishes look like. It's been so fun to see how everybody is kind of personalizing these, and there are quite a few people who have changed up their floss colors, or definitely some background fabric changes, and I've really enjoyed seeing the progress that everyone is making on their Barbara Anna pieces. So that's my first, not my first finish of 2025. I think it's my second, but also the other one was Barbara Anna too. So I've gotten a couple of smaller pieces done. I tend to work on larger stitching pieces, mostly samplers, but I'm happy to have something that's not a sampler in my rotation for some variety. So just putting those down on the floor and get them out of the way. And so next I worked on a red alphabet sampler that I've been working on for a while. Hopefully y'all are not tired of seeing this, because it's going to be around for a while. This one is called Antoinette, 1894 to 1896. Here is the chart on that. You can see there's a lot of alphabets there. A lot of beautiful alphabets. This is a chart by European Reproduction Samplers out of Germany. And if you go to their website, and you can find that. I am working this on 56 count linen. This is my first project on 56. Probably won't be my last. And here we are. This is, as I said, 56 count. The color is Shrekie's Tan. And this Shrekie's Tan is by Needle Bling Designs. And since we saw each other last, I have gotten some more of these large alphabets up at the top done. I'm just folding it over so I can hold it. So since I saw you last, I got the K, the L, that version of the Flaming Heart, and then I got in this corner motif, met up the border here, and got started on the border there at the top. So I feel like I got a lot of work done on that. And what I have found is this, although this has become a zoom stitch for me, and I know some people might think you're working on 56 count on a zoom stitch, but each one of those big letters takes a couple hours, sometimes more, depending on the size of the letter. But the Zoom group that I meet up with nearly every Friday night is a 2-hour Zoom group. So it's nice to pull this out and know that I can make some progress and have some fun talking to my friends at the same time. Hi, ladies. Anyway, so that's that. And I am stitching this with Oversoie 103 silk in the color 664. And I'm almost through 2 spools now. The one that I'm using is over on my stitching tray, and it's nearly empty, but I want to show you a full spool of that beautiful red. This is, like I said, 103 and the number 664, which is a gorgeous red. And I've got quite a few spools. I have no idea how many this whole project is going to take. Let me see if I have a total stitch count on this. I'm sure I do. Yeah, the stitch count is 373 wide by 546 long, which is another reason I chose to do this on 56 count, because otherwise I'd have a bed sheet of linen that I was stitching on. And as it is, this project should fit on a stitcher's quarter of that Trekkies tan on 56 count. So we'll see. But I've made my way, as you saw, I'll show you one more time, all the way across the width of it now. And it does fit from one side to the other. And I think it's looking pretty good. I'm pleased with where I'm at on that. I know a lot of people love their 103 silks, and I have had the opportunity, and we'll talk about this more later, to stitch now with some other brands of silk. So these were my first silks doing this. And I've had the opportunity now since I started this to stitch with some overdyed silks, also of a couple of different brands. And I have to say, I'm really enjoying the overdyed silks a lot. I don't know what it is about the 103s. It's got to be the way I hold my needle, that they tend to knot a little more frequently for me. I must be really twisting it and twisting the thread at the back. So I have to be very vigilant about looking at the back of my project, because I end up with knots. And I have not found, I have not found the same to be true for the overdyed silks. And I don't know, why that might be. I don't know enough about them yet to know. And if you have any speculations, I'd love for you to put them in the comments. But I'm really enjoying overdyed silks a little bit more than those. Although, 103 silks, the colors are beautiful. The floss is beautiful. What's not to like? So anyway, that's Antoinette, 1894 to 1896. And I've been working on that since late last fall. Again, I threw that on the floor already, or I would check the dates. I don't remember off the top of my head. But that one's going to be a long-term project. And again, I love to see the progress that those of you who have chosen to do this project now after seeing me do it are sharing with me on Instagram, because a lot of you are working on it. And it's fun to see what your projects look like. I'm glad to know that I'm an influencer. I never thought at this stage in my life, or any stage in my life, that I would be an influencer. But if it's about cross stitch, I'm happy to do that for sure, for sure. So next I want to talk about Quakers. So I started, my January 1st start was a Quaker chart called the Beatrix Potter Sampler, Beatrix Potter Quaker Sampler. This is the cover of that. And this is by a company called Stitchy Box. They have paper charts. This is a PDF, so it's just a printed copy of it. And I just love everything about this. And Beatrix Potter did not stitch this. Apparently she was a fan of cross-stitching. She had friends who were Quakers, and this was a sampler that was in her collection. And I started mine on a 46 count piece of linen. The color is called Moon Shadow, and this is by Seraphim. And I'm started up in the top. I started in the center, and I'm working my way over to the right. So I've just, since we saw each other last, I finished this motif. I had it partially done, I believe, when I showed it to you last. So I finished that, and then I put in this smaller motif right here, and that's very nearly to the left-hand corner. There's one more motif, but it's turned on its side, so it kind of tucks in there, and that will be the corner. And this I have chosen to do in a variety of flosses, and I'll show you those. I just chose, as I was trying to figure out what I was going to do, I wanted to gravitated to some like old gold colors that I had in my stash. And so I just pulled everything, some of a lot of different brands of floss. And even here I've got an overdyed silk floss, DMCs, I've got a Color and Cotton, Gentle Arts, Weeks. I do not have a Classic Colorworks one in here. Anyway, I just pulled out, obviously, threads that were all of a family. And I'm just kind of mixing them as I go along. So far, this one right here is a Color and Cotton. That's the first one that I started with. And that, if you're interested, is a color called Turmeric. But if you followed me from the beginning, you know it looks like some whiskey that I was drinking at the time that I start. So for me, this color is called Talisker Storm. And, excuse me, this motif right here is an overdyed silk. And that one is a dinky dye color called Cobar. Excuse me. I feel a throat tickle coming on. And then this small motif that I just put in, that one is a DMC floss, and that one is the number 3045. So right now already I've got 3 different colors going on, and I love the way they're playing together. And I, of course, could have done everything in the same floss, but I just decided, after I did some research and was looking at other people's Quaker samplers, Quaker medallion samplers, I want to be more specific now, because there are other kinds of Quaker samplers besides these more, what we might be able to readily identify as a Quaker, just based on the fact that it has these geometric, upside down, motifs. Most people would know that as a Quaker, but there are some other ones. But anyway, I'm just having a good time as I was looking at the samplers, seeing some variation in color in the medallion samplers. Some people choose to do them monochromatic and use all the same floss. But I wanted to see the same color, but just some variety in what we're doing. And I think once they're all stitched on the same fabric, it's just going to look like a really nice, cohesive design with the different colors of floss. And as I go along and introduce other flosses from different dyers, I'll make sure I identify those for you. But for now, like I said, I've got Color and Cotton, a Dinky Dyes, and our tried and true DMC. And so that one, as I said, is the Beatrix Potter Sampler by Stitchy Box. Now there's another design that Stitchy Box puts out that they call the companion to the Beatrix Potter Sampler. It too is a beautiful Quaker sampler, and I know of one person for sure who has told me in the comments that they're working on that. And she had a great idea for how she was choosing her colors that she was going to use on hers. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. I hope she shares some progress with me so I can see what she's doing. Because hers was all based, the colors were all based on the Beatrix Potter theme. And so as I was thinking about now Quaker Samplers, because I really don't know anything about Quaker Samplers other than that you can, as I said, generally identify one based on that kind of geometric medallion style. I started doing a little research, and on this channel, I like to research, and I like to share that with you. Some people seem to like it when I do that. So I went to the good old Googles, as we do, and started researching Quaker Samplers. And there are two main schools, Quaker schools, that come up. One was in England that was called the Ackworth School, which is still going. And the other one is in the United States called the Westtown School. That was in Pennsylvania, and I think that one's still in existence too. And those schools were open to not only people who were Quakers, but to other people as well. And they were known as having affordable tuition so that anybody could get an education. The more I read about Quakers, the more I think these people are cool. I really like them, and I like the philosophy, the idea that, well, obviously it's a religion. It was called the religious order of, or I'm gonna have to get back with you on that, but they call each other friends. That's the part that I find really wonderful, and that they get together to share time in community, what we might consider to be a religious service in the general way we know of getting together to spend time in, we'll say, reverence and prayer. They would get together in a meeting and just sit in silence and wait for someone to be moved by spirit to speak and share a message. There was not one person dubbed the minister or the preacher or the priest or someone that gets up and shares a particular message. It could be any one of the people who got together just to spend time in community and was waiting for the spirit to move them and share what it is that was on their heart. And I just, like I said, I really, really resonated with that when I started reading about it. Now, the schools were started in the late 1700s, and like many schools of the time, were trying to teach people how to live productive lives and teach them the things that they might need to help them bring in money or have a job or how to be a good citizen in society. And one of the things that the students learned was needlework. And so some very specific styles of samplers emerged. And I really found that out first by watching a YouTube video called Fiber Talk. And Fiber Talk has been around for a while. A man named Gary Power generally hosts that and has different guests, and he just sits down sometimes on a weekly basis with someone and they stitch and chat, and sometimes he has special guests come on to his show. But I want to direct you to an episode that was specifically about Quaker Samplers. If you're at all interested, I would recommend this one. It was from December 8th of 2019, and his guest was Vonna Pfeiffer, and they talked all about Quaker Samplers and the very distinct style of samplers that emerged, of which there were 5. And again, I want to recommend that you go watch that because it was really interesting. But I'm going to tell you about him. And also, I showed this to you last time, this booklet, Quaker Samplers, Not Just About Medallions, that was gifted to me by Kathleen Littleton of Cross Stitch Antiques She did a talk at Sampler Symposium 2023 all about Quaker samplers. And she gave me this. And this also mentions those 5 distinct styles of samplers. So I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this anymore, but I do want to share those with you so that as you're looking at samplers and maybe interested in identifying different ones, that you're at least aware that these are out there, and maybe something you're looking at could be a Quaker and you didn't know it was a Quaker sampler. So the first one is a marking sampler. And, you know, like a lot of people at that time, they were learning their letters and needed to mark their garments or their linens in their house. And a Quaker marking sampler, again, has a very distinct look to it. And I'm going to show you one that's in this booklet that Kathleen gave to me, this one right here. I hope you can see that. That one is from the Westtown School. And I've come to realize that style of marking sampler with that little vine across the top seemed like it was common to the Quaker samplers from the Westtown School. And that style of lettering is very distinct for the Quaker samplers. And like I said, that little vine kind of angular arch that was at the top. A second style of Quaker sampler was a darning sampler, and I would imagine many of you have seen darning samplers. There's a photograph of one right there, where you learned your stitches to darn a garment or darn something else. Another style of Quaker sampler was called an extract sampler. I'm going to show you one right here. Yeah. And that one is identifiable by the fact that it contains an alphabet in a leafy circle, generally, with a stitched verse, and maybe, obviously this one has maybe some other motifs, but that is called an extract sampler. Then, of course, we have the medallion samplers, and they are monochromatic or multicolored or polychromatic. And here on this page is an example of both. And there are some beautiful Quaker charts available out there right now. And then lastly, there's what I would consider to be the hardest style of sampler to identify as being Quaker, that basically contains a mix of many of the motifs that we've identified in some of the other ones, except for the medallions. Generally, they're not in it. But, and this doesn't even have a name like the others do, like the marking sampler, darning sampler, extract, medallion. This is just a mishmash. And this one is, I don't know if you're going to be able to even see very well. Not a great picture. But common motifs in Quaker samplers were flora and fauna, kind of asymmetrically arranged rather than being very symmetrically arranged like a lot of other samplers of the time. Excuse me, my light's going a little weird. And to me, when I started really looking at these samplers, there was just a sense of peace about them. They weren't necessarily packed with motifs, although you're going to always find the outlier that is the exception to that rule. But there was just a sense of nice, like, quietness and order to them. And I really enjoyed the little bit of research that I did. And I think if you go watch the Gary Power and Vonna Pfeiffer talk on that, they show a lot of examples of these specific styles of samplers and direct you to some charts that if you find one that you might like, they direct you to some charts that are of those specific styles. and some that we've seen a lot of people stitch on the order of, oh, I think Anne Grimshaw. That's a very popular one by the Scarlet Letter. It's generally done all in black. And it's a large one that has a lot of alphabets and some of the geometric medallions. A lot of people have done Anne Grimshaw. That one is commonly out there. And there are a lot of people now, designer people, who are designing samplers that are very obviously inspired by Quaker medallion samplers. Some big name designers like Jacob from Modern Folk Embroidery, he has a whole collection of Quaker inspired samplers. And I think he has some reproductions as well. And Log Dog Samplers actually have some Quaker inspired samplers. Rosewood Manor has a lot of Quaker inspired samplers. Obviously Primrose Cottage has some. They have a lot of small ones that are Quaker inspired. So there are a lot of neat ones out there. And I was inspired to get one, another one to add to my collection. I have it already nearly kitted. So that to me says maybe a new start is imminent. But I want to show you this one. It's one that Vonna and Gary talk about in their video. It's by Shakespeare's Peddler, and this is nearly a reproduction. This is called Ragamuffin 2. Now this one I first saw in spring of 2023 when my sisters and I visited Country Sampler up in Spring Green, Wisconsin. They had a model of this hanging on the wall, and they did, I think they did have their own color conversion of it, or my youngest sister, who is the one who does stitching, actually both stitch, but one of them stitches more than the other one. But so that my one sister bought this at Country Sampler, and I looked at it a lot, and I didn't buy it because I had bought other things, but I have thought about it over the years. And then very recently I saw a finish of it by a guy named Peter. I don't know Peter's last name, but he recently started a FlossTube called Oh for Pete's Sake, and I will tag him below and give you his information because he recently finished a beautiful version of this that I think if you like this at all, you might want to see. And so it was seeing his finish actually, and then of course listening to Gary and Vonna talk about it, that inspired me to download it and possibly get started. I have not chosen fabric. That's why you don't see a start on it, but I've pulled many of the flosses based on the recommended, and what I like to do when I'm kitting up something is I pull the DMCs. If there is an overdyed floss listed and I have it, I'll pull those out, and then I come up with what might be my own version. So what you see on this ring are most of the called for. There were two that I did not have, and so I got on to 1, 2, 3 Stitch and placed a thread order. And so anyway, these are the colors, and they're very beautiful. And I've added in, you know, some options on things. Pulled the DMC, added in some things that might look like it. Now this is another large sampler. That's kind of one of the things I identified about Quaker samplers, is that they all seem like they're kind of big. This one has a stitch count of 290 by 340. So I have decided I'm going to do this on 46 count fabric because, again, it can fit on a stitcher's quarter. And I have, or on 40 count, you'd have to have, if you want good margins for framing, you almost need a ½ yard. So I don't have a lot of 46 count. I have a couple of pieces, but I found this one that I may do it on. Called for fabric is Lakeside Vintage Light Exemplar. This is not that. This is a fabric from a place called Vintage Needle Arts. I got it quite a while ago when I was in the early stages of my stitching in 2023. And I was ordering just some different fabrics from different places and different counts. And I just ordered a couple of pieces of 46 count from this company. And I like this color with these flosses on it. And there are definitely a few motifs on this that are meant to be ghosty. So I may use this. I'm also looking at a piece of 40 counts, the only one I have that would work, that I have half yard of, that I got off a Stash Unload site. This one is Antique Lace by Seraphim. And the only thing holding me back on this is the blotchiness of this particular piece. I like my floss on this. In fact, I like my floss on this kind of a lot. But what I have realized as I've been stitching is my preference for over-dyed or for hand-dyed fabric tends more towards very subtle modeling. And this is one of those that has kind of more obvious modeling. So I may go with that other one. I'm not sure. I'm even thinking about getting the coffee out and maybe dunking a piece of this and just see if the blotchiness becomes more obvious, less obvious. Just give it a quick dunk and see. I'm just not sure yet. So that's why I have not started. But I do feel like a start on this is imminent. And what I really like about this is I think it's a good example of that fifth kind of slightly unnameable, unlabelable style of a Quaker sampler that has motifs from many of the others, as well as the natural forms, the birds, the plant material. It has the alphabets. There's even some Algerian islets in that alphabet, which of course, if you didn't want to do that or you wanted to stitch on Ada, you could just do full crosses. There is a little bit of over one on this. And anyway, I think it's a very beautiful sampler. Again, it has that sense of peaceful quality to it that I was really picking up from the other Quakers. So that one is called Ragamuffin 2 by Shakespeare's Peddler. And this one, Teresa Vanette has said in the notes here that the reason this is called Ragamuffin is that there was not an identifiable name on this, and it was in a pretty sad state of repair when she got it. So it was kind of a ragamuffin that she rescued and decided to chart. And there were a couple of places that she had to give an educated guess as to what might have gone in those places. And she did that after some careful research and her knowledge of antique samplers, and filled in those motifs or missing elements to the best of her ability to figure out what that would be. But I'm really looking forward to beginning that sampler. I'm starting to have a lot, you guys, as far as WIPS go. And I have been feeling a little bit overwhelmed by so many of them. And I have been watching a few FlossTubes of people's WIP parades, and I have been influenced to get one more new thing. But we'll talk about that in a sec, because I want to talk about an actual new start that I had, and I'll put that other piece off for a minute. So my new start is actually something that I'm doing in honor of Jean Lea of the attic. Now, the last time we were together, I was talking all about my experience at Sampler Symposium, and I was so grateful that Jean was able to be there, and I know many people who were there were really glad to see Jean. But it was very obvious that Jean's health was not great, and just really within about 2 weeks after the conclusion of Sampler Symposium on January 30th, we were all notified that Jean passed away. And there have been a lot of beautiful tributes to Jean that have been put out on social media posts on Instagram and Facebook, and that other people have shared in their FlossTubes. And while I didn't have a long relationship with Jean, I met her a year ago at Sampler Symposium, but I've told you before that I felt oddly connected to Jean. And I think a lot of people who met her would probably say the same thing, because she had the beautiful gift of, when you were with her and you were in conversation with her, she had the beautiful gift of looking at you and speaking with you as though you were the only person in the room. And nearly everybody who has been talking about her since her passing has said that same thing. So it was a universal experience of Jean Lea. And there are a lot of people who are starting projects in honor of her. Many of them are starting things on 56 count because she was such a proponent and supporter of people trying 56 count, trying to get out of that light, and it's going to continue to come in. I am just, you guys, so glad to see the sun. I'm just going to bear with it. I hope you'll bear with me. But so there are a lot of people doing things either on 56 count or maybe a red sampler, because Jean's favorite color was red. And I decided to do something a little bit different. And this is something that, although not 56 and not a red sampler, was definitely inspired by Jean. And I want to share that with you. This is an Erica Michaels chart. It's called Constant Companion. And this is it right here. And the reason I chose to do this one is because this little sampler right here, I saw Jean talking about on one of the attic floss tubes that she was doing with her partner and longtime friend and employee, Carolyn. And Jean, of course, I think she did it 1/1 on 40 count, so it was teeny tiny. And what was so beautiful about this is actually the sentiment. And I think, I'm going to read it to you, and I think all of you will realize why this would be appropriate for, as a memorial, if you will, to Jean, and also for any of us who are stitchers. And it says, "No one can look upon the needle without emotion. It is a constant companion throughout the pilgrimage of life." And there it is right there. Now, immediately after I saw Jean and Carolyn talk about this, I called up the attic and asked for them to send me the chart. And they did a silk color conversion, which I have. And I had a piece of 46 count color and cotton aged paper in my stash. And that's what I am doing this on. So there's my start of Constant Companion on 46 count, aged paper by Color and Cotton, with the attic silk conversion Many of these flosses are dinky dyes, overdyed silk. There's this one gum nuts here that will be used for the lettering, but everything else is dinky dyes. And these are luscious, luscious colors. This one in particular, I know it's going to be hard to see in the plastic. It's called Kuranda. It's a beautiful variegated green. That's what the vine is on here. And I will always think of Jean when I look at this, when I stitch this. And this past weekend, I went on a little field trip. I told you I went down to right outside of Wichita to visit my friend Ray Niles from Red Barn Samplers. And of course, we were talking about Jean and the different tributes that we've seen to her. And of course, the common theme is people talking about the loss of Jean to the community. And while that is certainly true, we were talking about the great gift of Jean. And anyone who encountered Jean and she encouraged you to stitch on 56 count, that was a gift she gave you. Anyone who looks at a red alphabet sampler and thinks of Jean, that was a gift from her. The Attic Needlework, which is in Mesa, Arizona, which is a destination store for so many of us. That's the gift of Jean, because she took that store on when it was for sale and made it what it is. Sampler Symposium, the Bristol Retreats, Autumn of Abundance, Summer School. Those are the gift of Jean Lea. They're relationships that people make because they've gone to those retreats and met new people there, or because we have watched FlossTube and maybe connected with people through the comments. Those are all the gift of Jean. So as much as we are feeling the loss of her, I also want to just recognize the many gifts of Jean. Countless people have been influenced to stitch and look at samplers, maybe for the first time or in a new way because of Jean. And she was an inspiration to so many people and inspired us with the courage that she showed as she faced the health challenges that she has over the after the last few years of her life. And coincidentally, although I don't believe in coincidences because they generally are all true, coincidentally today is the memorial service taking place for Jean down in Mesa. So my thoughts, of course, are with everyone who is feeling Jean's absence, because that will be felt for a long time. But to also remind you of the many gifts that she has shared, and especially a motto that has come to the surface, shared by Jean, and is now a chart by Amy, who designs under the name Mrs. Flossie, is always forward, never backward. So we move forward, recognizing the gifts of Jean Lea and the Attic, and moving into the future and seeing what that store is. I hope everybody will continue to go to retreats there and support the Attic as they are in a sort of transition and figuring out who they are and what they are without Jean's day-to-day presence, although I know due to her health she hadn't been there on a day-to-day basis, but without Jean to lean on and to get advice from, what does the Attic become? And I can't wait to see what that is. And that will be the lasting gift of Jean. So anyway, that's my new start and my honoring of Jean. And I want to thank you again to those of you who reached out to me with words of condolence after she passed. And anyway, just thank you for thinking of me in that way. I really appreciated it. So I want to move on now to some happy mail, and then I'll talk a little bit more about my visit with Ray Niles. But I got a couple of pieces of happy mail over the past few weeks. One was a week late, but I got a Valentine from my friend Teresa. Thank you, Teresa. I really appreciate it. And gosh, we'll just be color coordinated today. Thank you, Teresa. I appreciate you thinking of me at Valentine's Day. And then I got this amazing book called Ohio is My Dwelling Place. And it's a book of samplers, schoolgirl embroideries, 1800 to 1850, all Ohio samplers. And this was a very generous gift from my friend Gwen, who lives down in the southern suburb of Kansas City. And she had 2 copies of this and generously sent this one to me. So thank you very much to Gwen for that. Who knows, someday I may be talking to you about Ohio samplers more. And then I got a little bit of haul that I want to share before I start talking about my visit with Ray. So I had mentioned a couple of videos ago that the Color and Cotton thread club that I had belonged to for a little over a year was being discontinued, and that I was going to randomly at different times start ordering just some flosses from Color and Cotton. And I did that, and I got my first order. And so I want to show you those. But not only did I get my first order, but I got a duplicate set of what I ordered. So there is a story there. Look at these beautiful colors, first of all. And I'm going to go through these just because, I mean, I know Color and Cotton's not readily available, but I want to show you these. This is a color called Adobe, which is a nice kind of rosy red. This is Tulle, Aged Pumpkin, Acorn Squash. This is Solstice, Snow Queen, Duck Egg, Acadia, Vaudeville, Whiskey. Some of these you might be able to tell why I ordered them. I was auditioning them for my Quaker. Pollywog, Old Gold, Turmeric, which ends up making it into my Quaker, and this last one called Saffron. Now, the reason I've got a double set is because in early January, here in Missouri and other parts of the Midwest, we had a snowstorm that pretty much stopped everybody for about 36 hours. It was a big one because there was ice involved too, and nearly a foot of snow, which is unusual for us anymore. And I had ordered these flosses right before that snowstorm hit. And they put them in the mail right before that, but then they got stuck in Kansas City, Kansas. My package got stuck, and there's a sorting facility there, which seems like things get stuck and sometimes never resurface. But I didn't receive them for about 3 weeks, and right after Sampler Symposium, I called the Color and Cotton store and told them what had happened, and they were so generous. They just did a reorder for me of everything that I had ordered. And within just a couple of days of receiving the reorder, the original order showed up. So I called them and I said, you want me to send them back? Do you want me to pay for them? And I'm going to tell you, their customer service, Lauren is who I talked to. She said, oh no, you keep those for your trouble. That's a lot of floss, guys. They were so generous in allowing me to keep these. And she just said, either keep them for you or gift them. Do whatever you want with them. So I have an extra set. Some I've already gifted. But maybe in the future, if I do give away for some reason, or if I'm sending out something, or, you know, I'll have some great floss. Because, again, not everybody gets to try color and cotton. They're getting a little more well-known. Some designers are now designing with color and cotton floss, which I'm so glad about. Their floss is great. There are 8 yards on one of their cards. So there's a little more than some other places, and their colors are fantastic. And I know there's a FlossTuber, Mrs. Jones Stitches, that is doing a lot of color conversions with color and cotton floss. So I'm going to do this again sometime, not lose an order in Kansas City, Kansas, but randomly order from them again later on. But they're just really nice floss. And again, Lauren, thank you so much for your generosity and having me just hang on to those, keep those, and do whatever I wanted to. That was just so generous. So color and cotton floss. They also obviously do hand-dyed linen, because I just talked about using that piece in the 46 count that I'm doing and the piece I'm dedicating for Jean. And they have a lot of other great fabrics. They're starting to do pre-orders on some of their fabrics. Really lovely linen. And the range of colors of floss they have is just phenomenal. I know if I went to the store in St. Louis, I would probably go apoplectic at seeing all of those colors on their floss wall in St. Louis. One day I'm going to get there. I just will. And then I also, the last pieces, because there's a couple things here, of haul I got was, I was influenced through one of the WIP parades that I watched. A gal named Heidi, who lives up in Wisconsin. She has a channel called WIPS and Kits. And if you're not watching Heidi, I would encourage you to, first of all, give her a try. She does a lot of great projects, and she is not afraid to do her own color conversions, or she likes a lot of samplers, but she has a variety of things, and she's not afraid to choose some kind of unusual, maybe, selections of fabric for her projects. And I've been watching Heidi for a while, and in one of her episodes a while back, I saw her talking about this chart called Sarah Chapel. Oh, I should have taken it out of the plastic. There it is. This is also a Shakespeare's Peddler. Let me take it out of there because that glare is terrible. This is also a Shakespeare's Peddler chart. This is a reproduction. If I can get it. I ordered this from Country Sampler because as I was looking for Sarah, oh boy, now my glare is really, hopefully you can see that. Sarah Chapel, 1831. There was something about this when Heidi first showed it that I just really thought about after I saw it. And then during Heidi's WIP parade, which she has so many WIPs, she had to divide it into 2 videos. She showed it again, and I just thought, you know what? There is something about that I really like. I think I need that chart. And she's working on it along with a young man who has a FlossTube. I'm going to put the name down below because his name escapes me right now. But he's working on it too, and they're actually kind of stitching it together. And Davis Stitching, or Davis Quilting Stitching, or Davis Stitching Quilting. Again, I'll put it below, but that's who it is. And I am also going to do this one on 46 count because she's a big girl. And the recommended fabric on this is 18th Century Rook, I believe, by R&R. And I know that's a gray, a kind of a dark fabric. And as I was thinking about what what fabric I might like to do this on, I had this little piece of Fox and Rabbit Saltbush in my stash that I also got at Country Sampler. This is just a little piece of 13 by 13. This is 40 count. And so I had them send me that, quarter yard of it. And 46 count doesn't look anything like 40 count. Now again, my light's wonky, but you can see that one is way more gray than the other. And this is the one I preferred. So again, I'm not sure if I'll use this. There, let me get it out of the glare. I'm not sure if I'll use this one. I could put it in probably some coffee and get that color. But when I was at the attic and kitting up a project from Sampler Symposium, I got this color, which is Steinbeck. Yep, 46 count Steinbeck by Needle and Flax. And look at that piece of saltbush next to it. So I think this might be what I end up putting Sarah Chapel on. Now this one I do not have the flosses for yet. It was charted with Auversois, some Auversois silks, some NPI silks, and some DMCs. I'm just reading on the chart here. There's also a silken color thread. Obviously, Teresa was looking at whatever was going to get her the color palette to match this. And I am going to make my own color conversion for it. I pulled most of the DMCs. I didn't have everything. And I'm waiting again for some floss to come from 123 Stitch. And then I'm going to go from there and pull my own conversion. And another thing that I'm probably going to do with this, because there's a very large over one verse on this, I think what I'm going to do is maybe shorten this chart a little bit so that the area for the verse, that cartouche, is not so big, and maybe put a shorter verse in that. But we'll talk about this as time goes on. But I wanted to show you that one in case you want to be influenced to stitch this. This chart has been out for a while. I'm thinking I saw 2013. It's copyright 2013. So it's been out there for a while. Maybe you've already stitched it. Maybe you're seeing it for the first time like I was. That's the beauty of FlossTube, is that people are sharing stuff that's been around for a while, but it's new to me. I've never seen it before, other than Heidi talking about it. And maybe you haven't either, because I know there are a lot of people who are newer to stitching, or maybe newer to samplers, and you hadn't seen that before. But there's something that is just so dang appealing about that for me. There again, I'm looking to get out of that glare. I don't really want to close the shade, so we'll just continue to talk. So, and one last thing, I want to just do a little catch up from my Sampler Symposium meeting. I was showing several things that were gifted to me there, and I failed to show you guys this little guy. I hope that's going to focus. It is a stitched needle minder, and it actually was stitched with variegated floss, so it looks like a brindle colored Scotty, like Archie. I love this little thing, and I'm sorry I do not recall the name of the gal who gave it to me. Might have been, her name was Mary, but I don't really know. But I love this. And on my lamp that's always by my Stitchy chair, I have a couple of other needle minders, so it hangs over there. So I always have it with me when I'm stitching. And that's where it was last time when I was showing my gifts, and I just forgot to share it. So I wanted to rectify that. So let's shift gears just a little bit. So this past weekend, I went, as I said, to Wichita, Kansas, to visit my friend Ray Niles, who has Red Barn Samplers. She reproduces antique samplers and puts out charts. In fact, she's getting ready to go to the Nashville Needle Market, as many other designers are, and many of us are seeing all the amazing charts on different websites. And so Ray was in the final stages of having everything prepped for that. And but the reason I went down to visit her is because she has a really good framer. And Ray was at Sampler Symposium and said, if you don't have somebody yet picked out to frame your Bridget Power sampler, I want to recommend somebody. So I went down there and we took Bridget Power to Ray's framer to have my Bridget Power 1840 sampler framed. I think I picked out a great frame for Bridget. It's not what I thought I was going to get. Ray thought that her framer had a particular molding that I was really looking at. Turns out he didn't have it. And so at that point, I had to throw out plan A, and I think I came up with plan AA with what I ended up with, something even better. So I'll be excited to share that with you. I should have her back by maybe mid-March. He's going to have it done in early March, but Ray and I will have to find a time that we can rendezvous and do a handoff. She'll pick up my sampler from the framer. His name is Steve, by the way. If you're anywhere near Wichita or looking for another option for good framing, it's just called the Frame Shop in Wichita, and Steve is the guy you want to talk to. He was excellent to work with, and Ray recommends him highly. So Steve at the Frame Shop has Bridget now. Bridget is in his capable hands. So last weekend was a 3-day weekend because of President's Day, and I took advantage of that to do that little trip down to see Ray. And I knew that Ray had an extensive collection of antique samplers, and she had shown me some over FaceTime once, and I was itching to see those in person, which I did. Oh my gosh, it was extensive collection is kind of an understatement. It was almost overwhelming to see so many samplers in one place. I think most of us maybe, unless you're a collector yourself, we see samplers in maybe museums or in books. So we don't have the sense of what they're like to be in their presence. And so to be in the presence of a couple of hundred samplers was really amazing. And her collection started with a group of samplers that she purchased from an estate sale in Texas. And once she got those and caught the sampler collecting bug, her collection has just blossomed, we'll say. She'd probably have a different name for it, but she fully realizes that she has more than any person should have. I'm just saying. But what was great about seeing them all, she had samplers that were from the late 1700s all the way up to the turn of the 20th century. She had many styles of samplers. She had simple marking samplers, Berlin woolwork. She had some English samplers. There was a couple of Dutch samplers. She had a couple of map samplers, which were just very large frame samplers that had a map stitched on them. I think one was Scotland, and of course different towns. What else did she have? She had a Bristol, which was cool to see in person. Tiny, tiny, minuscule stitches on that. I can't even imagine what kind of fabric that little thing was on. And much of what she collects, some things are just rescues because they need a home. And some of them she has plans to reproduce. Quite a few of them she already has reproduced. If you have never heard of her company before, Red Barn Samplers, I encourage you to go look at what she has and what she's, of course, bringing out for market. But it was just great to be in the presence of someone who has way more knowledge than I do, and who has been in this business for a while and could just share what they're looking for in a sampler, why they collect the things that they do, and what they like about the things that they have. And one of the things that Ray really likes to collect are samplers with girls' names on them or stitchers' names on them that are quirky, or there's something about the sampler that's very quirky. Some of what she collects, you know, she obviously has an eye for reproducing and knows what will be a good thing to chart and reproduce. It was just really, really fun to have the opportunity to talk to her and pick her brain about how she's doing and why she's doing the things that she's doing. And as well, to see her studio, if you will, with her collection of floss and an array of linen, of which, of course, you never have the right color for the things that you're doing. There's always linen that you need that you don't have. But she had a master set of DMC floss. She had the full set of Auvera Soie 103 silks. She had the collection of the new painters threads from Thread Nuts. What else? She had some NPIs. She had a full set of Weeks threads that they generously gave her, and a large selection of the other major overdyes, the Gentle Arts and Classic Color Works. And what was really fun, beyond seeing all the amazing samplers, was that she had one out that she's planning on charting and working on bringing out in the future. And I got to help her pull colors for it. She just picked my brain and said, let's just do this. So, oh, that was so fun. So fun. So I got a little peek into the chart designer world and how a lot of that happens. And looking at the back of the sampler to see what the original colors were, and looking at the front and which colors do you choose, back or front, or combination of the two. So just so much fun, and to see those samplers. And I was just struck by the variety, first of all, and the variety of styles is what I mean. To see them in person and to have like a Berlin wool work next to a fine piece of stitching from obviously a well-to-do girl in England, you could just tell. And then to have some just simple marking samplers that obviously a young child did on a type of fabric. I think she said it was called Penelope cloth, which looks like needlepoint canvas. And it was done with yarn in garish colors. But, you know, just to see the level of skill from the basic to the amazing, and the breadth of the styles of the samplers all in one place. It was just such a gift to be able to see all of that and to learn about all of that. So I just really want to thank Ray for having me down for that. And I had mentioned a couple of floss tubes ago that I've got a project down the way a little bit that I needed to learn Algerian eyelets for and satin stitches, and Ray taught me how to do those over the weekend too. And since she had so many different flosses, she gave me a little scrap of some linen. I put it on my hoop and just started playing with different flosses to see what they would do for the satin stitches, because after Sampler Symposium and learning from Katie Strachan how choosing the right floss for what you're doing can affect the quality of what you're doing, it was really great to have the opportunity to try some different floss to do the satin stitches. So my little sample of stitching turned into this cute little pin pillow. So you can see the satin stitches there and my Algerian eyelets for my initials. I love Algerian eyelets. They were so fun. So fun. And so the satin stitches here, I just want to point out the difference to you. The top ones I did with 103 silk. The gold ones were with Auvera Soie d'Alger silk. So 103 is a twisted filament silk. 103 is stranded silk that you pull apart in a similar way to your DMCs or your overdyes, where you're pulling apart one floss. And then the blue-green is actually an overdyed cotton. And then this gold one right here is my Dinky Dye Cobar right there. So that's an overdyed silk. And then this one is actually the 103 also. But the difference from being up here, I was doing 2 passes. I was doing like 1 pass through the hole, and then I went right back and did the other pass. 1 and then another, 1 and then another. And down here on these, I threaded 2 threads through my needle, and so that was just 1 pass with 2 threads. So I was just really getting a sense of the different look of these. And I know they look a little stair-steppy, but I was using that sampler that I mentioned that Ray had me help her choose colors for. I was using that as kind of my, I'm looking at this, so I want to do the satin stitches like is on this sampler. And this is the way those satin stitches were done, in a little bit of a stair-step way, not a very smooth line. And of all of them, both of us decided that our favorite was the overdyed cotton, the way that looked on this piece of 40 count linen. This is Thornfield. And then I used overdyed cotton for the Algerian eyelets. And rather than just let me take home this little swatch of fabric, Ray said, we need to make that into a pin pillow for you. So she just sent me to her, opened up a cupboard with her fabrics in, and we picked out this little piece of quilting cotton, and she stitched it up for me, and we filled it with some walnut shells. She had a little bit of lavender, so it smells good. And there's a little bit of polyfill in the corners as well. Stitch that up. And then she gave me some little rickrack, because I didn't have time to finish that in the time I was there. And so I just finished the edge, stitched on a little bit of very narrow rickrack. Now I did pin on one of those little bulb pins and some buttons, but I actually like the negative space on this, so I took it off. So anyway, that's my little memento from my weekend with Ray. Such a great time. And also as mementos from that, she gave me a couple of things. She had, I've never stitched on Mason linen before, and she had this piece that was a limited edition, which basically she said meant that the color didn't turn out like they wanted it to. So she had this and gifted it to me, and I have a plan for this already. This is 40 count, a fat quarter. I think this is closest to the button box medium dark, but it's not quite that. And then she gave me one of her charts, which was a lot of people who were at the British Sampler Weekend Comes to America at Hobby House last fall. This was one that you all got, called The Painted Sampler 1894. And this is an adaptation of one of Ray's charts that she will have at market this year. And the one that she'll have at market has a few motifs right above this. But she also, at that Hobby House retreat, gave everybody a sample of the painter's threads. And it's hard to see the color here. That's why I'm... Here, let me put it on this. Maybe you can see. It's this fuchsia color, variegated with some purple and some red. It's gorgeous. And the color is called Frida, which I didn't even know. She she had like 3 or 4 different ones. She said, just choose whichever one's your favorite. And I was just drawn to this. I didn't even know it was called Frida. And some people know I have a real fascination and love with Frida Kahlo. So this was perfect for me. Not sure what I'll do with those yet. Maybe I'll stitch up this guy. Probably I will. It would be a quick stitch. And then the other thing I got, which I won't show you because they're in the fridge, I got a dozen eggs. Ray and her husband raise cattle, although Ray is a superintendent of schools down there. Her husband raises cattle, and they have a neighbor who has eggs, so they trade beef for eggs. And if you're in the United States, you know eggs right now are a hot commodity and kind of expensive. So having a dozen fresh farm eggs, and there were even some of the colored ones, the like blue and khaki colored ones and brown from those chickens, and it was just a great color palette, very similar to my little pin pillow here. So, and the other exciting thing I'll tell you is that over the course of that weekend, Ray and I have decided we're going to be collaborating on something it's for the future, but I'm really looking forward to seeing where that goes. So in this stitching world, you just never know what's going to happen. I mean, when I first started this channel in 2023, I had no idea that I would be sitting here talking to you or having met the likes of Nicola Parkman, Jean Lea, Ray Niles, Kathleen Littleton, Brenda and Laura, all of them, you know. It's just an amazing community that we're part of. And so again, we might be feeling the loss when somebody who has contributed a lot to the community, but we also, I think, overwhelmingly feel gratitude for the gifts of having connected with those folks and having been influenced by those folks and inspired. So that's just really what I came away from the past few weeks since hearing about Jean's death, and then having the time to reflect on my journey over the last 1.5 years since I started stitching, and culminating with that visit with Ray and what opportunities that could open for me and bring to me. It's just amazing, and I am very grateful for it. So plans that I have, obviously, to continue with the works in progress. I may start on that Ragamuffin sampler, and we'll see, because I didn't know I was going to have a start and a finish and another new start, the one in honor of Jean. I want to work on that. I did not get any progress on my stitch along for the Across the Pond stitch group, the Facebook group. Many of you are participating in that stitch along. I have not had the time to do it, and I want to make some progress on that, and then we'll just see what life, how it unfolds, because that's what's happening. It's unfolding. And with that, I want to tell you I'm at the end of what we might consider regular FlossTube content. And I want to do a little quiet time today, just as a reflection. And I was influenced again by the fact that today is the memorial service for Jean, but also with my research and what I'm learning about the Quakers and the coming together in community, the meeting of friends, which, I mean, that's, I think, what we do here and at retreats, and what the beauty of FlossTube has afforded us is a meeting of friends, whether in reality or virtually, and of just sitting quietly with each other. And if Spirit, God, if that's the name you want to attribute to it, chooses to give you any message, And if not, great. And if not, just the opportunity to be quiet is a great gift in our busy world. And I know there's a lot going on around the world with weather and conflict, wars, and all of the things going on with a variety of governments and politics around the world. There's a lot of people who are being forced into making life changes because jobs are being taken away, or just the variety of conflicts. And finding an opportunity for a few moments of peace might seem like a luxury. It might seem not very important, but I can tell you it's the most important right now. To be able to sit and invite in the light, the source, is one of the most important things you can do right now to connect into that most sacred part of yourself and the sacred part of our experience. So that's what I'm going to invite you to do right now. And I'm going to underlay this section of the video with a soundtrack that I have of the sound of stitching, because it's very rhythmic. One of the reasons we love stitching is because of the rhythmic nature of it. It helps our blood pressure calm down and helps us become present. Your breathing might align with the sound of that stitching. I'm not going to have a guided meditation today, but I'm going to put an image up on the screen of my few things in my meditation spot here in my apartment. And we'll just sit for a couple of minutes and just allow yourself to reflect on whatever you would like to think about today, whether you want to send peace out into this conflict-heavy world, or whether you yourself are in a situation where you want to ask for some guidance or inspiration to come in, or if you want to just send out your gratitude for Jean or anyone else that you maybe are missing, or who has inspired you and given you the gift of helping you be the person that you are. It's worthy of just spending a couple of minutes sending love and kindness, or receiving love and kindness right now. So take a deep breath. Settle into the chair that you're sitting in. Allow your breathing to slow down a little bit, and maybe your eyes want to drift closed. Let your shoulders relax and the muscles surrounding your bones loosen a little bit as you allow your body to be supported by whatever surface or chair or couch or whatever it is that is underneath you. Know that you can fully relax into whatever you're sitting or reclining upon. And that your breathing is going to come in and go out without your conscious effort. Loosen the tongue away from the roof of your mouth so that your jaw can relax. Maybe briefly scan your body to notice whether or not you're holding tension anywhere. Just let that go. And as we sit with our breath and in the company of friends, allow yourself to be open and receptive. And maybe send out some love towards those who are in need right now. And we'll just sit quietly now for a couple of minutes, allowing yourself the opportunity to just be here and kind of let yourself just rest. Just you and your breath. Allow your breath now to deepen a little bit. Maybe very gently start to move or wiggle your fingers. Maybe wiggle your toes within your socks or your shoes. Allow your senses to become more attuned to the room and the sounds around you. And if your eyes have been closed, let them gently open. Thank you all for sitting in company with me today. I really do appreciate the time that we spend together, and I appreciate having the opportunity to sit here and share with you and remind you of the gift that we are to each other. And be kind to yourself. Be kind to others, as we don't know. People we encounter, we don't know what's going on in their lives. There might be a day when you're the only kind face or smile or person that they encounter. So let's just embody that kindness right now. And as Jean would remind us, to move always forward. Thank you so much. And I'll probably see you in about 3 weeks. So until then, I wish you peace. Thank you and blessings to you. Namaste.